Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another live edition of the Spirit of Prophecy podcast. And we are doing a special live episode today to celebrate 1,000 subscribers, even though some dirty rat went and unsubscribed, knocked me down to 999. Let's get that back. All right. I don't know who's a smart aleck that decided to do that, but yeah. So we're celebrating anyway. We were there, even if it was not for a long period of time. We actually hit the 1,000 mark, and so we're going to go ahead and celebrate it anyway. And I'm sure these people will come back eventually. They will not be able to handle not watching the Spirit of Prophecy podcast and making sure they check out every episode. So if you have not subscribed yet, subscribe and share this and help get the word out. I appreciate the help in that area, and the first 1,000 subscribers is the hardest, and we're just going to go from there. And I don't understand it because like my preaching channel, it's got like 14,000 subscribers, but it only gets like half the views that this one does. So I've got a much more loyal audience over here. I think a lot of those subscribers on my other channel are fake, but from the shorts, and I don't know how all that stuff works. But either way, I do appreciate the loyal audience over here. I appreciate the contributions. I've got several emails I need to read. I've got people that send me their thoughts on things, and I've had some people like give me some really good things before that have helped me, and they've picked up on some things that I have missed, and that is partly why we are here. The Spirit of Prophecy podcast. This is not a channel where we just where we are I am the guru and I know all the answers. That is not the case. This is a podcast where we talk about the questions, we talk about the answers, we talk about the different positions and opinions, and we challenge others, and we allow ourselves to be challenged as well. So people need to get that in your head. Okay, a lot of people, they come to this channel and they're expecting it to be like other places. They're expecting me to be like other pastors, and I am uniquely me. I am just myself, and so I'm not here at all times just to tell you what to think. Sometimes I'm telling you what I think. Sometimes I will admit when it's opinion versus something I am convinced of, and you're just going to have to take it like that. And so what we're going to do today, I've had a lot of people that have been wanting me to give my timeline of events. Well, here's a problem with that. I am not creative when I am not artistic when it comes to charts and things. I mean, not only am I not artistic just with a pen in hand, but even you can give me a program where you can do illustrations and things. I can't even do that. I am just, I have no artistic abilities whatsoever. And so, I don't know, eventually I might take the time to try to figure out how to do something and come up with my own timeline, but I don't have one. But through this particular live stream, as we talk about different things, I will definitely give my opinions on some of the things. But we're going to do this by just going, and I've been wanting to cover some of these different things because there's a lot of different charts out there. Some are better than others. Some just kind of stink. But I wanted to give my thoughts about all of them. And just to put a challenge out there too for people who do try making charts and things like that, here's some things that you ought to shoot for. Because the reality is most charts today about end times are nothing more than a rearranging of Clarence Larkin's chart. And Clarence Larkin is definitely known for his charts. As big of a heretic as Clarence Larkin was, he was creative, he was artistic, and his charts were pretty cool and got people's attention for sure. And without a doubt, it is the chart that has inspired all other charts. Okay? And right now, I'm just stating facts. Okay, I don't want anybody to think I'm praising Larkin. I don't like Clarence Larkin, but Clarence Larkin's charts have influenced all charts. I'm going to show you that. Clarence Larkin's terminology that he came up with for end times has influenced terminology across the board, whether you're dispensational, non-dispensational, pre-trib, mid-trib, post-trib. When you say pre-trib, mid-trib, post-trib, that is because of Larkin's influence. He is the one that kind of made these terms big. When you say Daniel's 70th week, referring to events in Revelation, that's inspired by Larkin. That's where you got that from. And so there is no getting away from the influence that he had. And so we're going to start off talking about his chart. And I personally think that, I'm not against charts. Okay, I'm not against charts. Again, I hope to make one someday. Here's what I hope happens. I hope if I ever make a chart, I don't devote the rest of my life into defending the chart. We defend the scriptures. We don't defend our charts. Okay, we might get things wrong. And Clarence Larkin, without a doubt, got a lot of things wrong, but it has influenced all other charts. So here is a view of Larkin's chart as a whole. Now we're going to have to zoom in, and if you're watching on your screen, to be able to see things properly. But we're going to kind of zoom in here, and let's start examining this thing and noticing some things at the beginning. So notice that right here in the beginning, he has the rapture. And of course, that is a term that everyone still uses today, an extra biblical term, but one that he definitely helped make very popular. And notice Clarence Larkin starts everything off with the rapture. And it says up there in the corner, the glorified church with the Lord. And it's kind of hard to tell. It looks like it says Revelation 4 through, looks like Revelation 4 and 5 is what it's showing there. So again, because Larkin did this, people needed, and this is a cool looking chart. People needed to figure out, okay, now how are we going to make this thing fit the Bible? And so people started teaching, like Larkin, that the rapture is in Revelation chapter 4, which is absolutely ridiculous. And notice here too, I need to point this out, because all charts will do this, is they will title them the tribulation period or Daniel's 70th week. And he's got also the reign of the Antichrist. So this is why people cannot get it out of their head, 7-year tribulation, because they don't use the words of Scripture to form their thinking. They use the words of books, of the charts. And so these are the things that go to their head. It's not scriptures. It's not scripture references. Okay? It's not words in the scriptures. It's these charts. And again, I'm not against these charts, but the problem is if we have errors in these charts, these can really help cement some false doctrine in our minds. And so that's why we should always see charts as nothing more than just a creation of man to try to help explain some things from the Bible. And none of them are inspired. Okay. And I know I'm going to have water boys of every group that I look at that are going to get mad at some of the things I say about these charts. But, again, that's because you are a defender of a chart, not necessarily of the scriptures. So in Larkin's chart, notice he has the seals first thing. The white horse, the red horse, the black horse, pale horse, and of course, all of this is within a 7-year period. And then after the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, let's zoom in this a little bit more. It's kind of hard to see. It's a little blurry. But that's where you have the souls that are under the altar. But notice the 6th seal, all it says is physical changes. It doesn't say the sun is darkened and moon turned to blood. It just says physical changes. None of these pre-trib charts ever want to talk about the sun being darkened and moon turned to blood for some reason. And I think the reasons are obvious. But then if we scoot over a little more, he goes into the 7 trumpets. And then after the 7 trumpets, we have in the middle of the week, he's got the war in heaven that takes place. You have the dragon persecuting the woman that comes down here. So you can see all these visual illustrations are pretty cool. They're very, very intriguing. Let's see. But then here later on the end, we have the 7 vials that are talked about. And then he's got Mystery Babylon, the destruction of Babylon. And then he's got the Battle of, and I can't tell what that says. I don't know if that says Armageddon. Probably says Armageddon because that's the term that everyone uses. This is not a high resolution enough picture to be able to tell. But then you have, notice at the end, the revelation. That is the revelation of Jesus Christ. That's when your pre-tribbers would put the glorious appearing, when Jesus returns in the cloud, and then he's got the millennium. Another term, not in the Bible, but a term that we all use for the 1,000-year reign. And again, not saying these extra biblical terms are wrong. I like to challenge people, though, just to say, why do you use the words that you use? Just so we can check to see, are we being influenced by Scripture, or are we being influenced by theologians' charts and all those things? But right there on Larkin's charts, that is typically what your pre-tribbers will teach, where you have the rapture of the church, you have the seals, and then the trumpets, and then the vials is what you will typically see. You got the abomination of desolation right smack in the middle, and everyone always names them the same thing. They name it the tribulation or Daniel's 70th week, which I believe is a mistake. I believe it is misleading when we use that terminology, but it's the terminology that's in everyone's head because of the fact that, Larkin popularized it and made it really big. So now, while obviously that is, most pre-tribbers are going to agree with that chart. Now, they might point out some slight difference they have somewhere just to try to prove they're not just a Clarence Larkin Kool-Aid drinker, but virtually they're going to agree with that chart. Now, what I want to do now, I want to go to some newer charts, which right here, this is a chart that is from Kent Hovind, from his book, What on Earth is About to Happen for Heaven's Sake. Okay? Now, I think Kent Hovind's chart gets a lot more stuff right than Larkin. Kent Hovind is post-trib. He's got a book here called What on Earth is About to Happen for Heaven's Sake. I read this book shortly after it came out. It's been a long time. I need to go through it again. I don't remember everything about his position. It's been a long time since I read this book. I think it came out in 2013, and I probably read it in 2013 or 2014. February 2013 is when he wrote the acknowledgement for this. So it would have been shortly after that I read this book, and I got a lot out of it. It was really good. There are some things in the timeline I disagree with. I'm considering having maybe seeing if I can get him to come on the program and just to talk about his. Because again, while I don't necessarily agree with Kent Hovind's timeline, I don't hate him for it. Okay. Now again, I got a lot of weirdos that follow me. I might have some fun a little bit later and read some comments. I'm thinking maybe I should do a whole separate episode just devoted to reading comments from insane people. But I might do that. I might do that today if I have time. But Kent Hovind, he was very influenced by Roland Rasmussen. Okay? Roland Rasmussen, he was, some of you might recognize that name. He did the narration on After the Tribulation. Roland Rasmussen, we were talking about him the other day. I have his book right here called The Post-Trib Pre-Wrath Rapture when I had Pastor Stevenson on. And we talked about him, and I think he got a lot more stuff right than most people had. But I'm going to show you the problem that everybody has is they're holding on to too much stuff from Larkin. While they're fixing a lot of things, they're still hanging on to things from Larkin that I think is causing us to kind of hit some brick walls. And so in Kent Hovind's book, he's got a bunch of charts in here that he has Roland Rasmussen's charts. He gives Roland Rasmussen credit for a lot of things. And so you're not going to be able to see all these with me holding these up. But I couldn't find these on the internet. I should have scanned them out of there, but I'm going to show them on here. I scanned these ones from the book. But here's what I want you to notice about their chart. This is something where I disagree with Kent Hovind and Roland Rasmussen. Again, I hope you people can understand that disagreement does not mean I think these people have a big problem. I'm impressed with the things that they got right. But again, so right here, you'll notice the 7 years on the bottom. And I wish I had this where my cursor was showing. And you'll see the 1,290 days and then 1,040 days. And then there you see the 2,300 days section in there. What's all that about? Well, it's going to be hard to tell just from this. But here's another image of this. And let me zoom in to hopefully help you see this a little better so you can kind of understand what's going on. So let me show you what they are trying to convey here that I believe is due to still some influence from Larkin. So they have the 3.5 years in the beginning there on the left. And notice at the bottom it says Daniel's 70th week. Got to get away from that. Okay, got to get away from that. So he's got 3.5 years, and we've got a divider, and then we have a 3.5 year great tribulation. Now, this is something too. I remember when I was reading through Rasmussen's book back in the day and Kent Hovind's book, I kept thinking, why do we continue insisting that the second half of Daniel's 70th week is, and that which is what I was still calling it back then? Why do we insist on that being great tribulation? You know, we have tribulation, then great tribulation. And basically the reason for that is because of Matthew 24:15. After you have the abomination of desolation that they see as it being in the midst of Daniel's 70th week. And I'm not going to be able to take the time to go through all my beliefs on Daniel's 70th week. You'll have to go back and watch some of the previous videos on that. But then in verse 21 it says, for then shall be great tribulation. And then they just assume that's 3.5 years. Because, I mean, everybody knows tribulation, 3.5 years. Great tribulation, 3.5 years, because it's a 7-year tribulation. Everybody knows it's a 7-year tribulation because it's Daniel's 70th week. Everybody knows that. But what if you're wrong? What if this isn't Daniel's 70th week? Okay, what if Daniel's 70th week has already happened? When we are talking about the events of Revelation, how sure are you that it all fits within a 7-year time frame where the first half is 3.5 year tribulation, second half 3.5 years great tribulation? Are you sure about that? People are so dogmatic on that, and they don't really give any definitive proof. So let's go back to this chart. But again, everybody thinks that way because Larkin put that in everyone's heads. Okay, but Larkin, the main thing people focus on about his error was that he had the rapture in the beginning, which was ridiculous. So back to this chart, zoom in. So he has the Great Tribulation, the 1,260 days. And then on the second half, you'll notice, not the second half, but the first 3.5, you'll see there on the left, that's tribulation. Second 3.5 is great tribulation. And then notice what Rasmussen did. After the 7 years, we have an additional 1,040 days where we have the 7 trumpets and the 7 vials. Okay, so we're going to take the time here in a little bit to look at the new IFB or the chart, the Pastor Anderson chart that all the new IFB uses, and we're going to see that there are some things that are the same there. So like in the let me make this come up, and we're going to go over this in a little bit, but this is the Anderson or the new IFB timeline of Daniel's 70th week. And you'll notice on here that Anderson has the trumpets and the vials. Those are all in the second half of Daniel's 70th week, and that those are the wrath of God, okay, where the seals are tribulation. So the thing is, Kent Hovind and Roland Rasmussen, they would agree that we are here for all of the seals, but we are not here for the vials and the trumpets. Okay, the new IFB and Rasmussen, Hovind, they would agree on that. Where they disagree is Rasmuson and Hovind, they believe that the seals or the tribulation lasts 7 years, like Larkin said, because of Daniel's 70th week. But then what they've done is they've added an additional 1,040 days to the chart, which is where they put the wrath of God. So the first 1,040 days of the millennium, that's when they believe God pours his wrath out. So that's how their chart would work that we're going to see. And I believe they are making a mistake. And I'm going to show you where I believe they're making the mistake. I'm going to show you why that is wrong, or why I believe that's wrong. Again, don't hate these guys for it. But when they say they're post-trib, pre-wrath, they are saying, so when Rasmussen said he's post-trib, pre-wrath, he's post 7 years, but pre-trumpets and vials. In the new IFB, when they say post-trib, pre-wrath, they're going to say post 1,335 days, okay, which is a little over 3.5 years. 3.5 years plus 75 days, but then pre-wrath, meaning pre-trumpets and vials. So it's just, they agree on the events we'll be here for. They disagree on the timing. Okay, so and let's get back to this timeline. So anyway, so hopefully that all makes sense, what you're seeing with the 1,040 days. Now, where does that 1,040 days come from? Well, notice there, and it's a little blurry, at the bottom you see 2,300 days in the transgression of desolation. Okay, because Daniel mentions a 2,300 day period. And you know what? That also is in the new IFB timeline. Okay, notice what, let's kind of zoom in here. So we have here, you'll see at the bottom that line that says 1,335 days that goes to the seventh seal there on the right. And notice there's an overlap. So the abomination of desolation is 75 days before the seventh seal. But there is a period where after the abomination of desolation, there's 75 days of great tribulation. And notice there in the red, so you've got tribulation orange, great tribulation red for 75 days, and then God's wrath for, I can't see what that says, but whatever the remainder of days are that there are. Okay, so right there's a big difference. So in the new IFB timeline, they would have all of the seals, trumpets, and vials within a 7-year period, where Hovind and Rasmussen, they have the seals, trumpets, and vials in 7 years plus 1,040 days. And the reason for that is because when we get to the 2,300 days of Daniel, Hovind and Rasmussen begin that time at the abomination of desolation. That's what they do. And so then they go out from there. Well, if we go out that direction, in the tribulation, we got 1,260 days in the first half, and then the second half, we have 1,290 days. So the problem is we've got a lot more days than that. So there's an additional 1,040 that they have. Now, you'll note, so while Hovind and Rasmussen start the 2,300 days at the abomination of desolation, notice what Anderson does with the 2,300 days. I believe he has the 2,300 days on here. Maybe he doesn't on his chart. I thought he did. Hang on a second. So maybe he doesn't have the 23. I thought he had the 20. Oh, yeah. No, never mind. There it is. Unfortunately, with the, it's kind of hard to see. So notice here at the bottom, right above you see Great Tribulation, we have the 2,300 days. But what Anderson does is he ends the 2,300 days at the end of the 7 years, and then he goes back from there, where basically the 1,040 or the 2,300 days starts, during the tribulation. So he's able to make it all fit. So here's the thing. You say, well, what do you think about the 2,300 days? Well, here's what I think everybody needs to do to make their charts more accurate. Okay. And that is one, remove the title Daniel's 70th week. Okay. That already happened. Okay. Remove the term tribulation. Remove the term great tribulation. That already happened in 70 AD when all those things were about Jerusalem. Now, is there dual fulfillment, foreshadows, all that? Possibly. But are we sure? Are we allowed to just take everything in Daniel and put it in the future when many of these things had a fulfillment, like the 2300 days? And we're not going to take the time to go through all of it, but if we go to Daniel chapter 8, that's where the 2300 days comes from. And without a doubt, this is this is a prophecy that was fulfilled during the time of the Greek Empire. So, the thing is, if you go and you read the Maccabees, you can read all about how they came through. They didn't destroy the temple, but they did greatly desecrate the temple. And they did there was a period of time where Israel was unable to use the temple, and they had to have a time of cleansing of that temple. And then after that time of the cleansing of the temple, they ended up having a rededication, and that's where the Feast of Dedication came from, that we see mentioned in the Gospels when Jesus went to Jerusalem at the Feast of the Dedication, that people tie to Hanukkah. That was all of that was celebrating the rededication of the temple after the desecration of it that took place during the Greek Empire. So the thing is, the 2300 days prophecy, that was already fulfilled. We have no evidence from Revelation that those 2300 days are going to happen again. Could they happen? I guess theoretically they could, but I think we're making a mistake, and especially when we get dogmatic about it. And here's the thing: some people, and I've not taken the time to argue with these people, and if they'd be welcome to come on the show. Maybe I'll have them come on and talk about their timeline sometime. I think it'd be an interesting conversation. Just like, okay, what parts are you speculating on? What parts are you sure of? Okay, because again, what happens is sometimes people will put their thoughts, their speculation, which is fine, but then their followers, they will fight to the death for it, which is, kind of ridiculous. And it's just like, no, I don't think these things are as clear as you think. I think the 2300 days are done. I think that there are things about the tribulation that foreshadow the events of Revelation that I believe are still to come. But I think we're getting way too dogmatic about things in Daniel. And most of these charts are based mainly on Daniel. While we do see 3.5 year periods mentioned in Revelation, the 1335 days, the 2300 days, stuff like that, we don't see that. We only see the 3.5 years. And for the one asking when Chuck Baldwin's going to be on, I am going to be recording with him tomorrow. So I'll probably release that on Friday, I'm thinking. But that's a plan there. So here's the thing. So what about Daniel 12 and the 1335 days? Because notice here in the new IFB timeline, you have the 1260-day tribulation, the 75-day great tribulation. Now remember, there's nothing in Matthew 24 that gives us a timeline of 3.5 years, of 75 days, or whatever. Here we have God's wrath. I think that says 1215 days is what I think that says. Okay, so there's nothing in Matthew 24 that gives us a time period, especially for great tribulation of it being 75 days. This is theoretical, and it's a good theory. It's very possible that this is right. But let's see what this is based off of, okay? So this is based off of Daniel chapter 12. Now let's go to Daniel chapter 12 and just ask ourselves, well, this is a good theory. How sure of this should we be? How much should we fight people over this? And so it says, and at that time shall Michael stand up, the great prince which standeth for the children of thy people, and there shall be a time of trouble, such as never was since there was a nation even to that same time. And at that time thy people shall be delivered, every one that shall be found written in the book, And many of them that sleep in the dust of the earth shall awake, some to everlasting life, some to shame and everlasting contempt. And they that be wise shall shine as the brightness of a firmament, they that terminate the righteous stars forever. So obviously, that's a reference to the resurrection right there, which is what we would call the rapture. And so here it says, and I heard the man clothed in linen, which was upon the waters of the river. And he held up his right hand, his left hand unto heaven, and swear by him that liveth forever, that it should be for time and times and an half. I think everyone would agree that's 3.5 years. And when he shall have accomplished to scatter the power of the holy people, all these things shall be finished. Okay, what does that mean to scatter the power of the holy people? Is this a reference to the church? Because that's what pre-tribbers would say. Is this a reference to the church, or is this something that was about the Jews? Well, obviously this was something that was about the Jews. Obviously, this is something that is about the temple. Without a doubt. This is something that is about the temple of God. Okay? There is no getting around that. There's absolutely no denying that. So you say, well, but we're Israel now. But wait a minute, no, these things were about Jerusalem. These things were about the temple. Let's keep reading, okay? It says, and I heard, but I understood not. Then said I, O my Lord, what shall be the end of these things? And he said, go thy way, Daniel, for the words are closed up, unsealed, till the time of the end. Now, there's a lot of speculation about what that means, but isn't it interesting how he says these things are sealed or hidden, maybe is one way I put it, until time of the end, where Revelation says to seal not up these things, for the time is at hand. And I personally think one of the reasons he said that too is because many of these things that were prophesied, were, kind of contingent on Israel's obedience, on them successfully preparing for the Messiah like they were told to do while they were in captivity. And so these things, they weren't set in stone as much because of the fact that there were still some things that they needed to do, things that they needed to get done for these things to be fulfilled. Now, prophecy is not fulfilled through an ethnicity. Prophecy is not fulfilled through Israel. Prophecy is not fulfilled through the things of the temple. Prophecy is fulfilled through Jesus Christ. So understand, when Jesus Christ came, while there are many things that we see that were accomplished during that time, some things were not, and it was because of Israel's failure. But because of what Jesus accomplished, because of all the things that Jesus replaced at his first coming, because he replaced the temple with the temple of his body, he replaced the priesthood with the priesthood of himself, when he replaced the sacrifice with the sacrifice of his body, when he did all these things, understand the fulfillment now is not going to be through the people of Israel, through the things of the temple. It's going to be fulfilled through the new and the better covenant. So when we get to Revelation, we see many similarities to the things that we see in Daniel. But notice those things, he says, seal not up. You know why? Because Jesus did accomplish the things that they couldn't get done through the temple. Jesus, will do everything he said he was going to do. The new covenant, a covenant is between two people. The old covenant was between God and Israel broke that covenant. The new covenant is between God and Jesus Christ. And Jesus Christ is not going to break that covenant. Jesus Christ is not going to mess up. He will be victorious. And so there are so many things from Daniel that, of course, they're going to find their fulfillment in the future, but they're going to find their fulfillment through Jesus Christ. And so how those things play out might be slightly different than what we see in Daniel. What is being prophesied to be accomplished in Daniel will be accomplished, but through Jesus Christ. Maybe not exactly like we see in Daniel, because first off, these events happen. The 70th week came. The Jerusalem was destroyed. It was trodden underfoot of the Gentiles. During that 3.5 year time period, all these time periods, they happened during that time. It's just, it ended badly for them because they weren't ready. So are we sure that we're going to see the exact same events again? Are we sure we're going to see Jerusalem compassed about with armies again? Are we sure we're going to see the temple destroyed again? Are we sure we're going to see the abomination of desolation again? Or are we going to see Jesus fulfill all the things that Israel failed to fulfill? And that's something too. I'm getting ready to start preaching through the book of Matthew on Wednesdays. And one of the things that I intend to point out as we go through Matthew, and I'm going to point out an example right there in chapter 1, is when you look in Matthew, it's always saying that it might be fulfilled. Okay? Why is it saying this? Okay? Because of the fact that, because if we go back and look at all the passages, every time it goes to a passage where it says that it might be fulfilled and Jesus fulfilled it, if we go back and look at that passage, we can see that verse that was fulfilled, but then we can see a bunch of other verses that had application for way back then. And yet we don't see Jesus doing all those things. We just see him doing the one thing. What's going on? Well, back when those prophecies were given, these were things that Israel was supposed to accomplish. And while some things were accomplished, while certain things happened, there were certain things that did not get accomplished. So Jesus came along, and it's like at his first coming, he's tying up all those loose ends. And so he would do these things that it might be fulfilled. Why is he doing that? Because it wasn't fulfilled before. Israel didn't get the job done, but Jesus came and he did get the job done. So when we look at prophecy from the Old Testament and we see things that, certain things that played out, in 70 AD, for example. Well, I don't think we should say those things were fulfilled, but those things did happen. But understand, Jesus is going to come back one of these days, and he's going to tie up all the loose ends that it might be fulfilled. And so, like for example, one thing that didn't happen from Daniel 12, the resurrection hasn't happened. We're waiting for that to happen. Did the abomination of desolation happen? Yeah, I think that happened. And so we do see for sure that first half, that 12, happen. But at the same time too, what's left? I don't know. We ought to talk about these things. But notice though, says, and from the time that the daily sacrifice shall be taken away, and the abomination that maketh desolate set up, there shall be 1,290 days, which, and I believe in Anderson's timeline, he has 1,290 days. Yes, he does. So he has 1,290 days going from the abomination of desolation to the end of Daniel's 70th week. So yes, he does have that. But then it says, blessed is he that waiteth and cometh to the 1,305 days. Now, when you read that, it almost sounds like that 1,335 days is something that extends beyond the 1,290 days. It looks kind of like it's a reference to something that happens 45 days after the 1,290 days. I don't know, but in his timeline, he puts it the 1,335 starting at the confirming of the covenant and all that classic stuff. And then going into, the 75 days past the middle. So that's kind of how he has it. And it's an interesting theory. I don't think it's a rock solid theory. It's not something I'm going to fight for. It's definitely something that's worth looking into. I heard him preach a message one time that was very interesting, and where he showed there was a bunch of number stuff that he did that kind of shows the 1,335 days. And I'm not even going to try to do this stuff off the top of my head because I will get it wrong. But it was one of those things where, these things were kind of coincidental, for sure. They were kind of coincidental that all these things are pointing to the 1,335 days. And, what does that mean? Well, here's the thing. It could have meant something that was intended for the first century. And it might have come and gone, and Israel missed their opportunity. You say, well, maybe it'll play out in the future. Well, it might. It might. I'm not going to be super dogmatic about it. But so law of liberty. Are you trying to share a PNG image? Because it's not letting me click on it. Yeah, I was going to tell people. I don't know if it'll let you, but if you know of any timelines you want to share on here, go ahead and put them in the link. Oh, I see. He's giving me the. Yeah, let me look this up. Let's see what he has for a timeline. And that didn't work. Hang on a second. All right, I'm trying to find something on the computer. I don't know if the chat is blocking links or not. So here, let me try it this way. So you'll have to excuse me. This is what happens when we do things live. I think he put it on there with the spaces and stuff, so it would go through. I don't know how to just approve links on there. There's probably a way, but okay, here we go. And it says no results found. Well, yeah, it's not working. But anyway, so again, I'm not being critical because of these timelines. I'm just saying that, learn to separate what is fact from what is theory. I think that's important. Now, I do want to point out another thing about the Anderson timeline as well as the Rasmussen / Hovind timeline. So in the okay, never mind. So in the Rasmussen timeline, and this is something I don't agree with, and in the Hovind timeline, they've got the 7 trumpets and the 7 vials. This is another area where I think Anderson has more stuff right than the previous generation. I do think, and I agree, because people are wanting to know, you want to know my timeline. I'm telling you, I probably would line everything up the same way that's in the Anderson timeline. I think the seals happen, and notice how he has the trumpets and the vials happening simultaneously. And folks, that's just kind of a coincidence how all of these things are kind of happening. They're all about like the same things, where you have things involving the earth, things involving the sea. It's kind of hard to read all these things, but when you look at the things that they have in common, it's really hard to make a good argument that these are not something that are happening simultaneously. It's like we're kind of getting a view from heaven and a view from earth in what we're seeing. When we're on earth, we're kind of seeing the trumpets. We're getting earth's perspective. When we get to the vials, we're kind of getting it from heaven's perspective, because we've got Jesus. We watch him go into the temple and pour out his pour out those vials of his wrath. Okay, here we go. All right, so Brother Matt shared that. Let's look at Adam Fannon's timeline and see what he has. So give me a chance to get it on here. I've still got some bad timelines I'm wanting to show, but no, I do. I think the Anderson timeline is probably the most accurate one. If I had the artistic abilities to make a timeline, I wouldn't call it Daniel's 70th week, because I wouldn't be as dogmatic about the days. I think those are great theories. I really do. They might be right, but at the same time, I would probably make a timeline of what I'm sure of, and then I would make my speculation timeline. And on my speculation timeline, that's where I might start using some of the days from Daniel, but I'm not going to lock myself into that, because I think a lot of those things already had their fulfillment, and they're going to happen, and they might happen that way in the future. They might not. But either way, I do like how he has the trumpets and the trumpets and vials simultaneously. I think that's right. I agree. We're going out sometime after this. I think right after the 6th seal. So here is Adam Fannon's timeline, And let's see how he has it. So he has the seals. And then right here at number 6, he's got rapture, return. He's got 3.5-year tribulation, 3.5-year wrath. Yeah, he's got the resurrection in the right spot. I'm just kind of looking over this. I'm checking to see if he called it Daniel's 70th week so I can chastise him for it. Hey, I don't think he called it Daniel's 70th week. Good job. Okay. Yeah. All right. So, but yeah, 3.5-year tribulation. He does not have a great tribulation section, which is fine. Oh, wait. Yeah, he does it. Number 5, after abomination of desolation, great tribulation. Like I said, that's fine. Yeah. So I tend to agree with that. Does he have... So I'm just kind of looking at this, trying to read some of this stuff as I go. Do you have the 75-day thing, or do you just kind of leave that open to whatever? Which is possible, because again, obviously somewhere in the middle. But yeah, so he's got 3.5-year tribulation, 3.5-year wrath. He's got 7 trumpets and vials. Simultaneous judgments. Okay, so I agree with that. What does all this stuff say on here? Pattern. Okay. Yeah. So, yeah, I would tend to say this timeline, goes along with my thinking on things. So here's the thing too, though. And this is the other reason, too. Yeah, it says 75 days not listed. Here's another area where I'm not dogmatic, okay? While it is my position, that the seals all happen within a 3.5-year time period, I don't think it has to be that way. There are historicists that believe it's been happening throughout history. I don't fully buy into that, but I don't think it's that far-fetched, and it could be right. No timeline is given in Revelation for the seals. See, and that's why if I was going to make a timeline and it was going to be based on things I was sure of, it would be exclusively Revelation, because those are the things that I am convinced are all going to come in the future. The abomination of desolation, the desecration of the temple, I think that already happened. Okay, now, the man of sin declaring himself to be God, do I think he'll do it in a temple? I think he probably will, but I don't think it has to. Okay, I think it could be a reference to the mark of the beast, trying to literally insert his mark into the very temple of God, which is our body, and desecrating other people's temples to where they're not even going to be able to be saved after they receive that mark. So, I'm open to other possibilities. So what I would do, though, in my order of events, is I would put the seals, but I would put no timeline on there. You know why? Because Revelation doesn't give a timeline. We assume that it's a 3.5-year period because we assume it's the exact same thing as what we see in Matthew 24, and we assume that because he says in the midst of when you see the abomination of desolation, we assume that it's referring to Daniel's 70th week and right in the middle of the 7 years, but all of that could be first century. I would not do that. There are timelines given on some of the vials or and trumpets during that. That's where we start seeing a lot of the 3.5-year references. But I think you can make a good argument. All of the 3.5-year references in Revelation are about the second half. So it's when you get to Revelation 12, that's a tough sell. That's probably first half if any of them are. But either way, I wouldn't put timelines as much as I would just order of events. And so seeing as we have seen, the sun darken, moon turn to blood, again, I don't think the rapture is imminent. And I was going to release it today, but because of this, I delayed it today. Tomorrow, I'm going to be talking more about imminency and the only way you could possibly still get imminency. And I don't believe it, but at the same time, I cover that. So let's go back to some more of these charts. So right here is one I found online of Kent Hovind. And so, yeah, so notice he has the 70th week of Daniel. He's got the great falling away happening in the first half. He's got the temple rebuilt in Jerusalem. So he's looking for another temple to come. And then you've got great tribulation. And he's got time of Jacob's trouble. I think time of Jacob's trouble already happened. But again, foreshadowings, I get all that. Got a Star of David on there. Oops. Oh, man. I think Kent Hovind believes God's not done with Israel, if I'm not mistaken. So he's got the two witnesses. So he has the two witnesses overlapping into the millennium, I guess, going into the wrath of God period. That's kind of interesting how he has that. But yeah, I've not studied this timeline real close, but so it's a little confusing. But yeah, this is kind of like a view of all of history too. And so he's got the 997 year of great blessings, the millennium, and then he's got a period of time where looks like where they get ready for the Gog and Magog battle. What does that say? 231 feet removed. Oh, I see. It's just kind of showing a scale there. So, okay. But yeah, but no, these are interesting. So again, it's for the most part, agree with the order of events. I thought in one of his timelines that he had the vials and the trumpets happening simultaneously. I can't remember for sure, but either way, I don't hate somebody for not believing that. I know guys like Pastor First, he believes we're going to be here also for the trumpets. He believes the 7 trumpets happen during the tribulation that we're here for, but then we are out of here for the 7 vials. And there's some interesting arguments that he has with that too that I can't necessarily refute, but that's an interesting thing. Maybe we'll have him on one of these days to talk about his timeline. Because again, I'm not here today just telling you why everybody's wrong. I'm just talking about the different people's timelines and which ones I like better. And so obviously Clarence Larkin's garbage. Here's another chart. This one is in Tim LaHaye and Thomas Ice's book, Charting the End Times. And they give a lot of credit to Clarence Larkin. And notice theirs is called Tribulation, Daniel's 70th week, of course. And then we've got the 7 seals is what they have. And you'll notice too, on the 6th seal, it also doesn't say sun dark and moon turn to blood. It just says great earthquake is what it says there. And then they have the 7 trumpets, then the 7 key figures. And, where I guess it's just showing how Revelation introduces these different people. You have the 7 bowls or vials, and then the 7 dooms of Babylon. And I'm not sure how they get all those. I don't know if those all have to do with the curse put on them or if they're related to the 7 thunders. I don't know. And then you have the return of Christ, Revelation chapter 19. So, but yeah, the tribulation in Daniel's 70th week, first half 3.5 years, second half 3.5 years. And again, so all of these things, they are all charts when it comes to timelines are based primarily on time references in Daniel, not Revelation. And I'm telling you, I think that that's just kind of a mistake. And people are way too dogmatic about that. A lot more of that stuff has been fulfilled than I think people realize. And so a lot of times I think we're looking for stuff that maybe we don't really need. But either way, there's absolutely nothing wrong with people taking these things from the scriptures and trying to outline something, put their thoughts down. As long as you can let people critique it, it's good to talk about these things. Because notice here too, because again, this is the new IFB one is definitely the best one that I've seen. But again, here, notice it says Antichrist confirms the covenant. Okay, that's all about Daniel. We do not see the Antichrist confirming a covenant in Revelation. I believe that Christ confirmed the covenant, so I wouldn't put that on there. He's got the daily sacrifice beginning. See, all of these things are the things that we got from Larkin that has everyone looking at Israel all the time. We're always looking at Israel. The focus is always on Israel, and I don't know. I don't think that is right. I think that's where a lot of the deception is at, and I think it's one of the reasons too. And I know that in the New Ivy world they don't do this, but in the pre-trib world, that's one of the reasons they're always supporting Israel. They're thinking if we can help them get that land back and get the temple back, we can get the ball rolling on these things, and Jesus is going to have to come and get us out of here before it gets too bad. Well, it might play out like that. It very well could, but I don't believe it has to. When we look at prophecy in the Old Testament, there are so many examples that we can show of many, many, many things that were fulfilled in the day that prophecy was given, but then years later, you'll see just one little part of that prophecy that is fulfilled. Why? Because it wasn't fulfilled. It wasn't fulfilled before. And I'm going to be talking, listen to my sermon I'm preaching on Wednesday night. I'm going to give a really good example of that, where we're going to look at a prophecy that for sure Jesus fulfilled. But also that prophecy for sure was in relation to something that happened hundreds of years before Christ came. It was specifically a prophecy giving a timeline. But there was something from that prophecy that never happened back then. But it did happen with Christ. So why did only that one thing happen with Christ? That it might be fulfilled, which was spoken, Lord, by the prophet saying. Because why didn't you do all those other things? Because those were already fulfilled. So this was done that it might be fulfilled. So when it said if it wasn't for Revelation, Revelation, I believe is future. But when the tribulation of the first century came, Jesus didn't come back in the clouds. Sorry, preterist. He did not gather his elect. There was not a resurrection of the dead. Jerusalem was compassed about with armies. The desolation was nigh. The desolation came. They were trodden underfoot of the Gentiles for 42 months. There wasn't one stone left upon another from the temple. All of those things for sure happened. But so the thing is, why do those things have to happen again? Because here's the thing, though. I do believe, though, one of these days Jesus is going to come back and he's going to gather together his elect from the four winds, from one end of heaven to the other. Why? That it might be fulfilled. The destruction of the temple has been fulfilled. All of those things have already happened, but there's a lot of good parts that haven't been fulfilled yet. And that is a common thing that you see a lot in prophecy. And so I say all this to say, when it comes to disagreements on a lot of these things, it is okay to give grace. A lot of people aren't capable of that, and it's due to a lot of times insecurity, pride. How dare someone disagree with me? How dare someone doubt my theory? How dare someone doubt my speculation? But I dare. And I won't get mad at you if you doubt. Again, I have people on here all the time, regular, who do not completely line up with me. But at the same time, I respect their opinion. I have no problem with them having a different view than I do on some of these things, because I don't know it all. I really don't. But I learn when I talk. I learn when I'm challenged, and I never want to become the kind of person that cannot be challenged on anything. I don't want to be the kind of person that just has a following of weirdos that just loudly echo everything I say and never challenge me on anything. I don't think that's going to help me out. It's definitely not going to help you out if you try doing that kind of thing. We ought to be able to talk about it, and there might be something I'm convinced of while you're not convinced. And so either way, I think it's fun to talk about these things. And in the future, I might try seeing if I can get some of these people to come on and talk about their timelines. And again, that doesn't mean I endorse everything about them. It doesn't mean I endorse everything they do. This is a podcast. This is not church. and we can talk with different people on here. I will bring an Orthodox Jew on my podcast. What I won't do is I won't bring them in my pulpit and let them preach. I will. There's a lot of different groups. I will let a pre-tribber come in my pulpit and preach, but not about pre-trib. But I might let them come in this podcast and be like, "Hey, why do you believe that?" I might do that because these are good conversations, and I know I enjoy having them. Many of you enjoy watching them, and I appreciate those of you who watch and those of you who are sharing these things. And I hope you will keep it going, and let's keep spreading the word. Keep helping me out when it comes to the algorithm and all that kind of stuff. And smash the like button and share, subscribe, do all of those things just to help get it out there. And because too, the bigger following too, the easier it will be for me to get certain guests. I've reached out to some higher profile people before, but I'm probably too small potatoes to get them to come on. So again, I appreciate all those of you do things to help make the show better. Make sure you, again, if you have recommendations, I just did a post a little bit before the program asking, and I would like to get some feedback on here, some guests that you would like to have on the program. And I said it can be sheep or goats. And I see a couple on there. Spencer Smith. I don't think Spencer Smith will come on here. I couldn't get Spencer Smith to come on and do a live stream with me back before he was famous. Now that he's famous and got riches and fortune and a bunch of subscribers, he definitely is not going to want to come on here with me. But yeah, that would be and I don't know why I would have him on the program. I mean, I would, because Spencer Smith is entertaining. I don't think anybody's ever really accused him of being a theologian, though. He's more just kind of a personality. He's got an enjoyable personality. He stands for a lot of stuff that's right. He's against the contemporary stuff and the New Age stuff and all that. He says bad things about Calvinism. But at the same time, too, he doesn't get real deep, and he doesn't usually do challenging subjects. It's usually pretty easy. He goes after the low-hanging fruit, the Joel Osteen, Stephen Furtick's, stuff like that. But yeah, so I don't think he would come on the program, even if I gave him something easy to do. Pastor Gary Brooks is another one. Yeah, I'd love to have him on the program sometime if he wanted to. I've listened to some of his preaching. He's got some really good stuff for sure when it comes to this. But yeah, keep leaving suggestions on there, and we'll try to see if we can't line some of those up, and hopefully you'll enjoy those. But again, be ready. Chuck Baldwin is going to be back on the program. I'm planning on releasing it on Friday. I might get anxious and release it sooner, just because I always enjoy anything with him. But what we're going to talk about, I'm planning on talking about with him is we're going to cover the conflict that's going on over in Israel right now. But what I want to ask him about, because he has been heavily involved in politics before, where I've never been that deeply involved in something that I don't understand, and I'm hoping maybe he has some insight into it, is why are Republicans so pro-Israel? Are they pandering to the evangelicals who are pro-Israel? Or is this because they're just behind the Zionist agenda, but they make it like it's a biblical thing? So again, I personally, it feels like when Republicans are all rah-rah Israel, they're pandering to the evangelicals because it works. It really does. It works with most of them. But then, like, in the Democrat world, Democrats are typically, or Jews are typically Democrats. Most Jewish people are Democrats. So it's like, and the thing is, I've been hearing about it all week, too, on the news. A lot of Jews apparently are frustrated right now because it's like, why aren't the Democrats supporting Israel and supporting the Jews and things like that? And so it's one of those deals where it's like, yeah, why is it that Democrats typically are not the ones supporting Israel, even though Biden, he has been listening to his handlers and is supporting Israel, even though Obama has been saying stuff that's offending everybody when it comes to that. So that's kind of interesting. So I want to understand the politics of all of this. I already know the bad interpreting of the Bible that people do in the Baptist world, but these politicians, they don't give a rip about the Bible. So what is their motivation? So I'm interested in hearing what he has to say about that, just some of the political things, and we'll probably get his thoughts on some of the biblical aspects of things too. But either way, it will definitely be an enjoyable program for sure. So I hope you all will be watching for that and be ready. But anyway, I do appreciate you joining me today, and I hope you like these live streams. And so we will see you all next time. God bless.